The price of the brick has gone up. Yesterday's price wasn't today's price. Peyton Watson continues his ascent up the NBA ladder, and he is rewarded with Player of the Week in the Western Conference. This is just yet one accolade that Peyton Watson will hopefully continue to add to his ledger as his career moves forward. But this obviously continues to change the calculus for this Denver Nuggets team. We have a great game coming up tonight. Hopefully another great performance from Peyton. But I think that this is all good news for the Nuggets as they try to figure out how to solidify their lineup rotation and what to do with Peyton this summer. But again, Nuggets fans, this is great news. This is Swiper. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. This is your host, Swiper. This is your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. I am your host. Hope you're having a spectacular day. I hope your week is going well here on this fine Tuesday. The Denver Nuggets get ready to play the New Orleans Pelicans tonight. We'll talk a little bit about that game, but we got to talk a lot about Peyton Watson and the news that he won Player of the Week. But also, there are a lot of questions that are being floated around by Nuggets fans. What do we do with Peyton Watson? Do the Nuggets retain him? And now, I think what I want to do in this conversation is assuage a lot of concern, because so much of the concern is about what happens at the worst if we lose Peyton. But I think Peyton's development is just a sign of the front office doing their job, the coaching staff doing their job, the trainers doing their job, and Peyton Watson taking his job serious to try to level up as an NBA player, y'all. But today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. What's going on, y'all? Hope you're having a great day. So Peyton Watson, if you didn't hear, if you're not on the Twitterverse, if you're not on social media, then you might have missed it. Peyton Watson just won NBA Player of the Week. He won NBA Player of the Week. And if you look at the numbers that Peyton Watson was able to put up over that stretch, so I can share them with you right here so that you can see them. Peyton Watson, 24.5 points per game over the week that they went 3-1, 8 rebounds a game, and then 4 assists per game as well. Now, what's not mentioned on here are the shooting splits. Peyton Watson, last 4 games, he shot 50% from the field, 70% from 3 on 5 attempts a game. Now just 67% from the free throw line. He is not hitting his free throws great this year. But that's really good efficiency, 63% true shooting. Peyton Watson, he was a positive plus-minus in all 4 of the games that they played, including the one they lost to Atlanta. So the reason why I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of different ways about this Nuggets team and feeling like, hey, you know, I don't actually know what's going to end up happening with Peyton Watson. I'm wondering if the Nuggets are going to continue to keep him. I understand that. And obviously there's the first apron, second apron stuff to consider. But I think Peyton Watson just simply deserves a lot of credit for just how much he's leveled up his game ever since the injuries happened for the Nuggets. Now, not just the injuries for Jokic, but the injuries for Christian Brown, the injuries for Cam Johnson, the injuries that took place to a bunch of players on the roster, including Aaron Gordon. And without him and what he's done this season, they would not be in the place that they are. They wouldn't. And P. Watt as a starter this year, y'all, he's averaging 16, 6, and 2 a game. And then in that stretch, he's also shooting 52% from the field. He's shooting 44% from 3 on 4 attempts a game, 73% from the line. And one of the things that's made it work so well this year is that they're just in a place now where they can give Peyton Watson the ball and ask him to maneuver and score and play make. And now we're 7 games into this experiment without Peyton Watson. I know one of the things that we used to talk to everybody about, and, you know, we had conversations here amongst ourselves is, you know, when the Nuggets didn't have Michael Porter Jr., for instance, Michael's numbers, they would plummet because it just didn't feel like they could actually build an offense around Porter. Now, some of that was probably on Malone. They didn't feature him enough. but some of that was also just the uniqueness of a skill set. Teams, because he was in Denver's system was so long, he had 7 games without Jokic. If I said differently, I apologize. If teams knew what his strengths were, they would just face guard him. And they would face guard him and put him in a situation where they would just try to take him completely out of the game plan. And there was a game versus the Dallas Mavericks that I remember like maybe 2-3 years ago, y'all, where Michael Porter Jr. was playing without Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And I remember very specifically in that game, he did not get off in that game at all. And I'm trying to find the score. This might have been this was 2023. Porter played 23 minutes in that game. He had 8 points in that game. He had another one in 2020 where he scored. This is like, 5 points in that game or whatever. Like, there have just been times where he just hasn't looked phenomenal. And I think Porter not being able to create and his inability to be able to get to his spot and get to a shot, it definitely limited the Nuggets as an overall team and roster. And we had 3 games in the 23-24 season that he didn't have Jokic. He averaged just 12 points a game and 9 rebounds. He shot 33% from the field. He shot 28% from 3. And there was a lot of conversation around the team like, hey, Malone, are you doing enough? Which I agree he wasn't doing enough to really help elevate Porter and give him responsibility. But also, Porter, we're lacking creators. Can you go do that? And I think the difference with Peyton Watson that we've seen this year is that, again, going into the season, it was a very clear mandate. We got to get Peyton Watson the ball. He has to get comfortable dribbling and creating and scoring. And you got to know and learn how to play make for your teammates, because the better you get at these things, the more we can keep you on the court, because he's already a plus defender for the team. He's already a really good defender for this roster. But the more that he can figure out just how effective he can be as a basketball player, that helps everybody on the roster to get better. And if the coach can trust him to stay on the floor, then that just feeds into the environment for the entire team and how the team needs to continue to work around him and get better. The Nuggets this year, they're 10 points better with Peyton Watson off the floor. They're 4 points better with Peyton Watson off the floor. Now, again, a lot of that's just lineup stuff. The Nuggets have a 128 offense rating with Peyton on the floor this year. They got a 117.7 defensive rating, but that's not Peyton. That's tied into a lot of things. The lineups he's playing with Jokic and Murray, where they're just blitzing people outrageously on the offensive end, and they're just simply not playing the same amount of defense, as you would expect or maybe want them to. But this year, with Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray on the floor, y'all, they have a 136 offensive rating in 470 minutes, a plus 17 net rating. Plus 17 net rating. That's exceptional. That's phenomenal. With Peyton Watson and just Jokic, they're a plus 10.6. And they're not great when it's just Watson and Murray. They're a minus 0.2, but Watson, without both of them, they're a plus 1.3. Again, this is a lot of lineup data that goes into this stuff, so I wouldn't look too much into it. But I think that the biggest thing that we've been able to see and find is that when they're on the floor together and Peyton Watson is able to play next to AG, he's able to play next to other players on the roster, they're plus 17.7 in the AG Peyton Watson minutes. And then you include Cam Johnson in there, Peyton Watson's a plus 15 with Cam Johnson. So I think the thing that makes him so good is his lineup dexterity. And this year, in 137 minutes, by the way, they're a plus 14.9 when it's him and Christian Brown. So a lot of this is just the starters and how good they play together. But I think Peyton Watson has elevated his game so much because he's no longer a legitimate negative on the offensive end. And because he's shooting so well, and because he can ball handle, and now because he can penetrate and drive, he's putting a lot of stress on the opposing team. And I think that his development, man, he deserves so much credit because he could have been stationary. When I first saw him come out of the draft, I said, hey, this can be a really good defender for this team. Now, he has all-star potential, but tapping into that offensive all-star potential, that's going to be tough. It really is. But he's turned into a phenomenal player. And on the other end, I'm going to get into some of the numbers why I think he'll be a much better player as time goes on, and some of the things that he's really accentuated in his game to allow for his explosion to happen. But also, what should the Nuggets do about this? Is this going to be concerning when contract negotiations come up, and how might they handle this? We'll talk about all that and more here at Locked On Nuggets. Y'all know what it is. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, the first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are going to really cost. That's where Gametime comes in. The Gametime app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Gametime app is just straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few steps. Seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy and confident. Prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Features like zone deals help you unlock great seats. Now, y'all know I love Gametime. I love comedy. I love theater. I love athletics. I want to use Gametime as much as I can because, again, nothing beats being able to look at a ticket, see the seat view, see the price, and I know exactly what I'm going to get on checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today and get in on the action. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in network nearby with availability. And you also want a doctor who really listens, makes you feel comfortable, explains things clearly, and helps you walk out feeling confident about your next step. Your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding them is easy with Zocdoc. Zocdoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can choose someone you truly connect with. Now, I love that you can search for specialty or symptoms and quickly find the right fit. You can check the verified patient reviews to get a real sense of the doctor's vibe and communication style. And if I needed to book care fast, this is one of the first places I'll go to. It just makes the process that much more simple. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Go to Zocdoc.com/LockedOnNBA to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA. Zocdoc.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks to Zocdoc for sponsoring this message. We'll be back for segment 2 here at Locked On Nuggets. We're back here for segment 2 of Locked On Nuggets. Shout out to you all. Hope you're having a spectacular day. Thank y'all so much for tapping in with the show. Also, if you're watching this, make sure to hit the subscribe button, like the video, share the video. We are on the way to 15,000 subscribers. That is the next goal. Be a part of that journey here with Locked On Nuggets. Also, if you're listening to this on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, give us a 5-star review. That way, more and more people can listen to the great content being made here at Locked On Nuggets. Also, if you want to hear more about what we do and you want to be an everydayer, thank y'all for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. All you got to do is go to lockedonnuggets.supercast.com and tap in, and you can be an everydayer with us. So, y'all, let's get into it. So, some of the things that Peyton Watson has made tremendous value in his growth is he has become a very good transition player this year. The Nuggets are averaging 1.37 points per possession with him in transition. The Nuggets this year, he's become a good pick and roll ball handler. They're scoring 0.92 points per possession in the pick and roll, which is good, especially for his first real year doing it. He's shooting 1.09.2 points per possession as a spot up shooter this year, which is good. And he's an average isolation player this year, averaging just 0.86 points per possession. Now, these are all good numbers. Like, this is fourth-year development, first year really trying to learn how to be a primary offensive engine. Your usage has gone up. What are signs that, hey, there's actually more story to be told about your offensive game? This is why I think this is so important. Because what we're seeing from Peyton Watson is that there are multiple opportunities now where he's going to continue to take steps forward as a playmaker, as a scorer, because of the responsibility he's given, but also because of the work that he's putting in as well. And I think that the coaching staff deserves a lot of credit because they've found different ways to move him around the court to accentuate his athleticism, to accentuate some of the things that he does really well as a shooter. And I think he's grown so much as a passer that if you remember the 76ers game, the Celtics game, including this last game that he just played versus the last game they just played versus the Bucks, he gets 2 feet in the paint and he doesn't look like a deer in headlights. Now, he'll turn the ball over sometime, but when he gets into the paint, he then is able to look around and say, all right, here's whether it be Bruce Brown at the top of the key, Aaron Gordon top of the key, here's a cutter, here's a slasher. And by the way, he's doing this without a center. So when you do this without a center, I think what you allow for yourself to see is that he is continuing to find ways to manufacture offense as a creator around traditional lineup. And Mars Far Sports, shout out, crazy name. I definitely have gone through the data baller stuff with him. We can definitely do that as well, because I do think it's important for people to get an understanding of just where he is in his career and why I think this growth is so important. And you bring up an interesting thing in the chat. You talked about him and Jaden McDaniels, and that was definitely one of the comps that he had coming out of college, I think, is that he potentially could become where he's truly an ace on the defensive end, but then also add a little bit of offensive repertoire as well. But I think the thing is that Peyton Watson has shown in his own right is that he's actually a better scorer than I think Jaden McDaniels is already. And especially given how he's getting a lot of his shots, I do think that he'll time after time after time, he'll continue to get better. At least a better scorer than Jaden McDaniels was at that point. But Peyton this year, y'all, if you look at the shot creation numbers, it's plus efficiency. It's not anything crazy relative to the league. He's shooting about 0.7% better than the rest of the league. So that's about an average score, scoring out of the post, scoring out of isolation, scoring out of pick and roll handoff. He's shooting 55% on twos this season, which is good. 41% from 3 this season, which is very good. It's like I said, it's the turnovers that we're continuing to work on. He's still working on his playmaking and his passing, but I do think as he gets more experience with that stuff, he'll continue to get better. But his numbers across the board, y'all, they're just showing that there is just a level that he has gotten to from, I think, an intellectual standpoint that is allowing for him to take these steps. And I think, like I said, the player of the week stuff, some of that is just situational, just based on how things have gone, I think, in the NBA this week. But I do think that him being able to do this and give you a 24-8-4 stretch over a 4-game sample size, that's a big deal. And I will say this definitely changes the conversation around the summer concerning Cam Johnson's extension, because we spent so much time talking about Christian Braun and the contract that he signed, and was that the right decision, and was $25 million a year too much? Y'all, that's already happened. It's over. And, we talked about it at the time. I shared my thoughts on it in ad nauseum. I thought that $19 to $22 million a year was more than fair. When you saw Josh Giddey get 25 and all that, it was just kind of all right, that's just the situation and what it is. They paid him. He's still a really good player. I think when he gets healthy, he's going to look a lot better. But Cam Johnson, though, has $23 million on his deal next year. He's extension eligible this summer. I think what ends up being the question is, how can they both re-sign Peyton Watson to a contract he deserves, with Nikola Jokic making the amount of money that he's making, with Jamal Murray making the amount of money that he's making, with Aaron Gordon making the amount of money that he's making? Jokic is on track to make 59 next year. Jamal's making 50. AG's making 31.9. Cam's making 23. And then Christian kicks in at 21. But then you got Jonas Valanciunas at 10. I don't know if you're going to get that money. We'll see what happens with that. And then you got Zeke Naji making 7. So they already have a significant amount of money being allotted to the starters. And I think Christian Brown's deal coming into play, that's going to take up a lot of bread. But if I'm Peyton Watson, I feel if I'm Peyton, I have shown more potential, and I've risen to a level that Christian hasn't gotten to. And Christian got paid not just based on what he did, but also projection of him going forward. So the 25 M's in the rising salary cap, that was a percentage of the cap they felt comfortable with. But if I'm Peyton, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, I do think, especially with Clutch Sports, I could be a $20 million a year player. But because of the way restricted free agency works, you all, now this might be a new situation, but if you look at what happened with Cam Thomas, with Jonathan Kuminga, and with Josh Giddey this past summer, there also is a world where he gets squeezed out of his money, very similar to Austin Reeves did a few summers ago when he signed a $12 million a year deal, even though he was for sure worth more than that. We'll talk about more than that on the other side. We're going to finish up this conversation about Peyton and what the Nuggets should do, talk a little bit about the Pelicans game tonight. We'll talk about all that and more here at Locked On Nuggets.
I carry a lot of responsibility in my household. If something happened to me, there would be serious consequences. We have a mortgage. We got tuition. We got everyday bills. Those aren't going anywhere if something happens to me. And I know that's an overwhelming feeling, but I'm taking steps to protect my family by getting life insurance through Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast, easy, and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. And as of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 3,000 reviews. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get your free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. That's ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. Ethos.com/LockedOnNBA. Application times and rates may vary.
We're back for the final segment here of Locked On Nuggets. I hope you're having a spectacular, wonderful, amazing Tuesday. The Denver Nuggets get ready to play New Orleans Pelicans tonight. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. Wrapping up the conversation on Peyton Watson. By the way, somebody dropped in the chat. I think this is a really good, interesting point. Thank you, Philip. Hopefully, P. Watt doesn't get too hypnotized by his offensive jump and lose his defensive value in terms of effort distribution. Now, that is the $85 million question. It is really hard. It is very hard for players, especially young players, to figure out how to use their awesome, great measurables, length, athleticism, speed, power, how to use those things on the defensive end, and also had a couple of things with the offensive end. Because the way the NBA works, you get paid for offensive production. Now, the better you are at both of them, then the more money you're likely to make. But Peyton Watson is in a very unique situation now because he has proven that he can score, and that he can score as a primary engine or he can score as an off-ball engine. He's better at the off-ball stuff, but the primary stuff, I think that stuff is going to work itself out over time. Again, development is not linear, but development, I think, happens in pockets. And I think one of the pockets of development now is like, okay, you're learning how to be a solo act without Jokic and then with Jamal Murray out there. But I think the next part of this is, hey, when Jokic gets back, how do we make sure we're maximizing the Peyton Watson that is an exceptional off-ball player, on-ball player, and how do we continue to get you in spots that we need to get you into? And, Peyton Watson, this year, when Jokic plays with him, Jokic is averaging 31, 12, and 12. He's having a crazy season. He obviously really values playing with Peyton Watson. The numbers reflect that. Peyton this year is a much more efficient player when Jokic is there, but the thing is, Peyton Watson's usage with Jokic is 16%. Without Jokic in 408 minutes, it's at 22.6% usage, 19 points a game, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Now, just 58% true shooting, a little bit below league average, 41% from the three-point line. And I think the two ball, that's the thing that he really needs to get together. But I think one of the things you do, though, is that when you generate more contact in the paint, you get to the free throw line more, your efficiency goes up. And remember, I talked about this a couple years ago. I think one of the things Peyton Watson has to really get used to is that he has so much athleticism and length that if he can figure out a way to Denny Advia, SGA, Luka Doncic, use Giannis Antetokounmpo, use your athletic profile, which is more in line with SGA, but just more verticality. Use your athletic profile to create as much contact as possible. because the more free throws you create, the more shot opportunities you create for yourself and for your team. And that's one of the most efficient things you can do is learn how to drive to the basket, especially do that like underneath scoop that players love to do. You scoop, you bring your hands up, and then you get fouled on the way up and one finish, or you get to the free throw line. And I do like that he's using his shoulder more, because one of the things that's effective for a jump shooter is that when you get into a spot, hey, I'm in the midi, bump, shoulder, step back, I'm able to get into that shot. He did that versus the Celtics again as well. So there are multiple things that he'll continue to work on, I think, as he continues to get better and better and better. But like I said, y'all, my biggest thing with this is the team is benefiting from this growth. The better he gets, the better the Nuggets get. That's why for me, like the conversations around like, well, him and Christian and the money and Kim and Cam, I'm like, no, this is a team. Like they're all benefiting from each other being good. And I think Peyton is benefiting from the team, but the team is also benefiting from him taking these steps with his overall game. I do think his defense needs to really, especially like fourth quarters, second quarters into the second quarter, that really needs to be a point of emphasis. That rim protection, sliding your feet, running the hump, that stuff definitely has to be there because they need him to be good at those things. And their defense can't really take any much more of losing some of the players that they're losing. By the way, Peyton Watson this year, y'all, he's graded out as a 94th percentile defender when defending handoff. So when you run a handoff DHO with him, they're only scoring 0.5 points per possession on those actions, which is phenomenal. Phenomenal defense by Peyton Watson. So when he has to get into his bag as a defender, and when it's time for him to like run the hump, to get over screens and to be able to get back into a spot and re-engage with the defender or with the offensive player, he's shown that like he has a lot of tools to do that at a pretty high level. And like I said, that defense that he played on Jaylen Brown, especially, y'all, that really got me. And the defense that he played on Derek White too. Like a lot of this is when you're playing versus high level players that's trying to be able to get around and move. I think it's special stuff. But the Pelicans game tonight, so let's get into that a little bit because I think the Nuggets are in a very unique situation. So the Pelicans right now, they're obviously like a good young team. They're still figuring a lot of stuff out. The Nuggets are going to be today, it looks like, looking at the current roster, projected to go tonight. It looks like Spencer Jones is probable. Aaron Gordon is probable for tonight, and Jamal Murray is questionable. So let's say that Murray, Gordon, and Jones are playing. So that means we're going to get maybe AG comes off the bench again because he's still on a minutes restriction. So Jamal Murray, and at that point, Christian Brown is going to be out of this game as well. He's still dealing with some issues with his ankle. I think it's just a flare-up, with the roll and the sprain and stuff that he had. So he just needs to take his time. Probably Jamal Murray, Jalen Pickett, Peyton Watson, Spencer Jones, and Deron Holmes or Zeke Naji. And that could be an interesting lineup to play versus this Pelicans team. Now, the Pelicans, they're not the strongest team. They don't put a lot of demand on you physically, but they're still like an athletic roster. Derek Queen has played well. Sadiq Bey is going to be in the game today. He was kind of questionable coming into it. I'm looking at this. Zion looks like he should be good to go. Trey Murphy, maybe Herb Jones should be good to go. I'm looking at the Pelicans injury report right now. So Herb Jones is out. DeJounte Murray out. Hunter Dickinson is out. And then Jose Alvarado. So, yeah, they're going to have Trey Murphy. They're going to have Derek. They're going to have Zion Williamson. And then, obviously, they're going to have Jeremiah Fears and Jordan Poole. So I think it's going to be a really competitive game. But the way that I'm feeling right now about this team, I think that the Nuggets should win tonight. It's going to be at home. I think they're riding a little bit of momentum coming into this next game, especially at the win they just got versus the Bucks. They're in a favorable part of their schedule over the next 4 games. And it's not that they're just winnable without Jokic and the rest of the starters. But I think if you look at the schedule right now, and you told me that, hey, they go 3-1, 4-0, I think it's very realistic. They played New Orleans tonight, in New Orleans, rather. They play Dallas in Dallas. No Anthony Davis. That's going to be a tough game. But then they play Washington at home, and they play Charlotte at home. Then they play the Lakers at home, and then they got Washington again on the road. So these next 5 games are very well-positioned, winnable games. Then they play Milwaukee again in Milwaukee off the second night of a back-to-back, and then they have Memphis. So really, these next 7 games, next 8 games, they're all very winnable situations for Denver. So they just have to be able, I think, to lock in defensively. Deron Holmes and Zeke Nnaji need to fortify the paint minutes today. And I think Jamal Murray, if he does go tonight, good playmaking game, good scoring game. They don't have anybody that can guard you consistently. And then Peyton Watson, that secondary action, secondary creating, all that stuff is going to be really important. So the Nuggets, they should get a win. But y'all, let me know what you think in the comment section. What do you think about the Peyton Watson situation? What do you think about him getting Player of the Week in the Western Conference? What do you think about him and just honestly making the team better? And what are some thoughts that you're looking forward to for the rest of the season around Peyton Watson? Y'all know what time it is. This is Swiper. This is Locked On Nuggets. See you on the other side.